Every summer, the same heartbreak plays out in gardens across the country. A gardener kneels down, wraps both hands around a garlic stalk, pulls, and instead of a fat, beautiful bulb, finds a soft, rotten mess that falls apart between the fingers. Months of waiting. Gone. Sound familiar? If it does, there is something important to understand right now. It was never about bad soil. It was never about bad luck. The problem started the moment that clove went into the ground, untreated, unprotected, and carrying invisible hitchhikers no one bothered to warn about. Commercial nurseries and large-scale growers have known this for decades. They have a protocol, a precise soaking method, that sanitizes every clove, jumpstarts root growth, and triggers the plant's own immune system before it ever touches the dirt. The result? Bulbs up to 4 times larger, zero rot, harvest after harvest. They never shared it with backyard gardeners. Why would they? Treated seed garlic sells for 3 to 6 times the price of regular garlic. Fungicides and pesticides fill entire aisles at the garden center. There is a lot of money in keeping home growers dependent. But here is the thing. The 3 key ingredients in that nursery protocol are not expensive. They are not exotic. One is under the bathroom sink. One is in the medicine cabinet. And one grows wild along rivers and creeks in nearly every part of the world. This video lays out the entire method, step by step, ingredient by ingredient. No shortcuts, no secrets held back. By the end, every gardener watching will know exactly how to give onion and garlic bulbs the strongest possible start, using science that costs almost nothing. But first, before we talk about the cure, there is an enemy that needs unmasking. 1. The hidden enemies in the soil. Here is a question most gardeners never think to ask. What is already living on the garlic clove before it goes into the ground? When garlic comes from the grocery store, or even from a well-meaning neighbor, it is table stock garlic. It was grown to be eaten, not planted. Nobody tested it for disease. Nobody inspected it under a microscope. To the naked eye, the clove looks clean, firm, perfectly healthy. Beneath the surface, though, a nightmare can be waiting. White rot, the single deadliest garlic disease on the planet, produces microscopic spores that can survive in the soil for up to 20 years. Plant one infected clove in a raised bed, and that bed may never grow a healthy allium again. Then there is Fusarium basal rot, which quietly decays the base plate of the bulb until the entire plant wilts and collapses in midsummer, right when the harvest should be weeks away. And perhaps the most unsettling of all, stem and bulb nematodes, microscopic worms so small they live between the paper-thin scales of a single clove. They feed, they multiply, and by the time any damage becomes visible above ground, the crop is already lost. Dry bulb mites work the same way, invisible, patient, devastating. Once these organisms enter a garden bed, they do not leave. They spread through the soil, contaminating everything planted after them. One bad clove can ruin an entire growing season, and, in the case of white rot, an entire generation of harvests. The commercial agriculture industry knows this intimately. Their answer is a tightly controlled hot water treatment, submerging seed garlic at a precise temperature for a precise number of minutes to kill the pests without killing the clove. But for home gardeners, this method is a gamble. 1 degree too high, a few minutes too long, and the clove is cooked, dead before it ever hits the soil. So instead, they sell the treated garlic at premium prices, sometimes $30 a pound, and let the rest of us figure it out with fingers crossed. Nature, fortunately, has provided a different path, a simpler one, and it starts with something that costs about $2 a bottle. 2. The oxidative burst, hydrogen peroxide. Underneath nearly every bathroom sink in the country sits a brown bottle of 3% hydrogen peroxide. Most people use it on scraped knees. Gardeners should be using it on garlic. The chemistry is elegant in its simplicity. Hydrogen peroxide is just water with one extra oxygen atom attached. That extra atom makes the molecule unstable, restless, constantly looking for something to react with. When it finds organic material, fungal spores, bacterial cells, the soft outer membrane of a nematode, it tears them apart. The reaction produces hydroxyl radicals, one of the most powerful natural oxidizers that exist. These radicals shred through cell walls. They rupture the protective coatings of mites and nematodes. They obliterate fungal colonies on contact. The numbers from university trials are remarkable. A 20-minute soak in a 3% hydrogen peroxide solution eliminated up to 98% of stem and bulb nematodes in test samples. Fusarium infection rates dropped from 42% down to just 3%. Not with an expensive commercial treatment, with a $2 bottle from the pharmacy. But here is the part of the story that turns a simple cleaning solution into something much more powerful. Hydrogen peroxide does not just destroy pathogens, it breathes life into the clove itself. During months of winter storage, garlic cloves slowly suffocate. Oxygen levels inside the tissue drop. The embryonic sprout, the tiny green shoot curled up inside every clove, sits dormant, starved of energy. When the clove hits that peroxide bath, bubbles appear almost immediately. That fizzing is dissolved oxygen flooding the tissue, reversing the oxygen starvation, reacting with iron stores inside the clove, and giving that embryonic sprout a massive jolt of energy. Dormancy breaks. The clove wakes up. Growth signals fire. It is a sanitizer and a wake-up call in the same bottle. Now the clove is clean. It is awake. But clean and awake is not the same as defended. The next step is about building armor, from the inside out. 3. The aspirin vaccine, priming the plant's immune system. For thousands of years, long before modern pharmacies existed, people chewed willow bark to ease pain and bring down fevers. Eventually, scientists isolated the compound responsible, salicylic acid, and turned it into what the world now knows as aspirin. What most people never learned is that salicylic acid was never just a human medicine. It is a plant hormone. Plants produce it naturally, every single day, as part of their own immune defense. When a fungus attacks a leaf, or an insect chews through a stem, the plant responds by flooding the damaged area with salicylic acid. That chemical signal races through the entire plant, stem, roots, every leaf, triggering the production of antimicrobial proteins. The technical term is systemic acquired resistance. In plain language, it is the plant's version of a full-body immune response. The problem, and this is the detail that changes everything, is timing. A young garlic plant sitting in cold, damp autumn soil often cannot mount that immune response fast enough. By the time it recognizes the threat, the fungus has already moved in. The infection spreads underground, invisible, and by spring, the damage is done. Researchers at the University of Rhode Island and the USDA discovered something that should have made front-page news in every gardening magazine in the country. Soaking seeds and bulbs in a diluted aspirin solution before planting triggers systemic acquired resistance artificially, before any disease ever arrives. The plant's defenses go up on day one. It is, in the most literal sense, a vaccine for plants. And the benefits do not stop at disease resistance. Studies showed that salicylic acid significantly increases chlorophyll production and leaf count. That matters enormously for garlic and onions because each leaf on the plant corresponds directly to a layer on the final bulb. More leaves, more rings, bigger and denser bulbs at harvest. One study documented a 16% increase in leaf count, which translated directly into noticeably heavier bulbs. The plants also showed stronger tolerance to heat, drought, and environmental stress, which means more consistent harvests even in difficult growing seasons. One uncoated 325 mg aspirin tablet, 1 gallon of water. That is all it takes to flip a switch inside the plant that nature designed but rarely triggers in time on its own. There is, however, one more ingredient. And for this one, the story goes back even further, to the old-timers, the grandparents, the generation that could stick a twig in the ground and make it grow. Four. Willow water, Mother Nature's rooting hormone. Ask anyone old enough to remember victory gardens and hand-pushed plows, and they will tell the same story. Their grandmother could snap a branch off a bush, push it into damp soil, and somehow, without rooting powder, without grow lights, without anything from a garden center, it would take root and grow. That was not luck. That was willow water. Willow trees, those graceful weeping giants that line riverbanks and pond edges, have one of the most aggressive rooting abilities in the plant kingdom. A broken willow branch that falls into wet ground will sprout roots within days. The reason is a compound called indole 3-butyric acid, or IBA, a powerful natural rooting hormone concentrated in the young green growth of willow stems. Here is what the garden industry does not advertise. IBA is the exact same active ingredient sold in those little plastic bottles of synthetic rooting powder at the hardware store. The willow tree makes it for free. Willows also produce salicin, the natural precursor to salicylic acid. So, willow water delivers a double payload: rooting hormone and immune primer, extracted from the same handful of twigs. Making it at home takes almost no effort. Clip a bundle of young green willow stems, pencil thickness or thinner, chop them into short pieces, pour boiling water over them, and let the mixture steep for 24 hours. The resulting liquid is dark, fragrant, and loaded with the same hormones that commercial nurseries charge a premium for. When garlic cloves soak in willow water, root development accelerates dramatically. The cloves push out roots faster, establish deeper, and build a larger root network before the first hard freeze arrives. That expanded root system acts like a sponge, pulling in moisture and nutrients from deep in the soil all through winter, giving the plant a massive head start when spring growth begins. 3 ingredients, 3 different jobs. Hydrogen peroxide to clean and wake up the clove. Aspirin to arm the immune system. Willow water to supercharge the roots. The question now is how to combine them, and in what order. 5. The master protocol. Putting it all together. The full protocol is a 2-step process. It takes a small amount of preparation the day before planting, and it may produce the biggest, healthiest garlic and onions a garden has ever seen. Step 1. The sanitizing bath. The day before planting, gently separate garlic cloves from the main bulb. Leave the papery skin intact. It protects the clove during the soak. Place the cloves in a clean bowl and cover them with a mixture of 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide to 3 parts water. For a stronger treatment, straight 3% peroxide works as well. Let them soak for 15 to 20 minutes, no longer than 30. Extended soaking can damage the delicate tissue at the base plate where roots will emerge. The bubbles will be immediate and visible. That fizzing is the oxidative reaction at work, destroying pathogens and flooding the clove with oxygen. After the soak, drain the cloves and rinse them thoroughly with clean water. Set them aside. Step 2. The nutrient and immune priming soak. In a large bucket, pour 1 gallon of homemade willow water, prepared the day before by steeping chopped young willow twigs in boiling water for 24 hours, then straining and allowing it to cool completely to room temperature. To this, add 1 crushed, uncoated 325 mg aspirin tablet and stir until dissolved. For an extra nutritional boost, add 1 tablespoon of organic liquid kelp or fish emulsion fertilizer plus 1 teaspoon of baking soda. The baking soda buffers the pH slightly and helps disrupt any lingering fungal membranes. Submerge the sanitized garlic cloves in this mixture. Place the bucket in a cool spot, a garage, a shaded porch, and let them soak for 12 to 24 hours. During this time, the clove acts like a sponge, drawing in rooting hormones, salicylic acid, and micronutrients directly into its tissue. When the cloves come out of that bath, they are awake, armed, and fed. Plant them immediately, 3 to 4 inches deep, flat root plate facing down, pointed tip aimed at the sky. Cover with soil, then add a thick layer of mulch or straw as insulation against winter cold. 1 evening of preparation. That is the entire investment. The soil and the seasons handle the rest. There is an old truth that experienced gardeners understand instinctively. The harvest is decided long before the plant breaks the surface. It is decided in the preparation, in the quiet, unglamorous work done the night before planting, when no one is watching and no flowers are blooming. The garlic clove is a patient teacher. It shows that real strength is built underground, in the dark, through nourishment and protection, not through shortcuts or expensive products with impressive labels. Everything needed for a remarkable harvest is already within reach. A bottle of peroxide, a single aspirin, a handful of willow twigs, and 2 hands willing to do the work. Try this method this fall. Better yet, invite a neighbor, a grandchild, a friend who has been struggling with their garden. Show them the bubbles. Tell them the story of the willow tree. Some of the most valuable knowledge in gardening was never written in a textbook. It was passed hand to hand, season to season, between people who cared enough to share. Thank you for spending this time here on Rooted in Grace. If something in this video resonated, if it answered a question or sparked an idea, leave a comment below. Share it with a fellow gardener who could use a better harvest this year. And if this is the first visit, consider subscribing. There is always more to dig into. Until next time, may the soil be kind, the roots run deep, and the harvest be well worth the wait.